Hi.
Hello. We're on page 281 of In Search of Christian Freedom by Franz. Ray has been addressing the double standards of the Watchtower across the world when it comes to principles that they state very clearly and properly in their own publications to be observed by Jehovah's Witnesses and everybody else, but which they are willing to compromise themselves, especially when it serves a pragmatic purpose, and those purposes are often related to finances. So Ray goes on page 281, yet the organization has itself set up certain arrangements which produce a similar situation of illegality. At times the Watchtower Society has faced legal barriers in its efforts to send its trained missionaries into certain countries in South America, Europe, Africa, and the South Pacific. The particular country may refuse to grant entry visas, or perhaps residence visas, to Watchtower missionaries. The Watchtower's sending in of missionaries in these instances is not usually because there are no witnesses in the country, but because of wanting to send in personnel that the organization has more directly trained in its teachings, policies, and methods. The work or worship of Jehovah's Witnesses is not dependent on their introduction into the country, but the organization believes that this will usually result in more rapid numerical growth or in more efficient handling of our branch office.
Frequently, the organization has made arrangements with a witness in the country who has a business or industry, and he has provided a letter or document affirming that the particular missionary, who is not identified as such in the document, is being hired to work for his firm, or a witness connected with a firm that is not in that country, but which has international trade or dealings, may provide such a letter or document, stating that the individuals will serve as the representative of such firm in the country targeted. The missionary and his wife, if married, may go to the country as non-witnesses, and after arrival may purposely, and according to organization instruction, stay away from meetings and association with witnesses, except perhaps some assigned contact person. Then after a certain time, and making use of a visit from the witnesses going door to door in their area, they act as if they are now becoming interested in the religion of Jehovah's Witnesses, and soon begin to attend meetings. It is not long before they are working in the branch office or in some other capacity, all made successful by this pretense. I know personally of such cases, as for example in the country of Portugal.
In other cases, after arrival in the country, the missionary will report to the documented place of business for one day only and not go back again, now spending his entire time in the missionary activity. Or if supposedly representing a foreign firm centered outside the country, he may make occasional reports of business contacts of a very perfunctory kind, all to keep up appearances.
Another method, used in some South American countries, has been for the missionary to apply for entry as a student, going to study at a university in the country involved. Upon arrival, he or she will take the absolute minimum of classes required and spend all the rest of the time in witnessing activity or other activity designed to advance the organization's interests.
Still others go into a country presenting themselves as tourists, and every 6 months or so they leave the country through one frontier city and, after a day or two, re-enter the country through the same city or one nearby. Some foreign Watchtower representatives in Spain and Mexico have lived in those countries for decades by using this method, during all those decades continuing to represent themselves as tourists, though often employed full-time at Watchtower branch offices. In all cases, these arrangements are worked out by the Watchtower headquarters organization, not at the initiative of the individual missionary.
It's like a spy story. Contact people and just talk about living a lie.
Yeah.
This is awful.
But we know, based on our experience and the way the Watchtower in our generation and the prior generations was willing to rewrite its own history in the supposed interests of the let's just call them organizational interests, the greater good idea.
Yeah. Misrepresent the facts, shade them.
And how they're quite willing to do that now in the case of the child abuse news that's out there in the general culture, but is not in the consciousness, apparently, of most Jehovah's Witnesses.
Distort the facts, or at least say it in such a way as to not come right out with the policy of the Watchtower.
Yeah. And I'm also reminded that way back when the aid book came out, there were a few things in the aid book back around 1971 when it first emerged that bothered me, because some of them we discussed in the meetings and in elder policy situations where so-called theocratic warfare was being considered. And one of the things that emerged from the aid book was that they justified Abraham in his, say, lying to Pharaoh because he was serving a greater good, which was advancing Jehovah's interests on earth. So they were willing to whitewash a lie. So I guess we shouldn't be surprised that they're willing to do this in their worldwide missionary strategy, among other places. But yeah, it is living a lie.
The average witness does not know this, that this is the way that it's done, or that this practice is done in any case where they pretend to be something they aren't.
Yeah.
Just to get in. Like, I don't think that would sit well with a lot of witnesses.
Yeah, one wonders whether it sat well with these missionaries.
Yeah, I know. But it says some of them are doing this for decades.
Yeah.
You get used to it and justify. I mean, we do things sometimes, and then we might not feel comfortable to begin with, but then we justify ourselves.
Absolutely.
And think, well, just so that this can happen, or I'll do it. But we shouldn't get too comfortable with something.
But what particularly offends Ray, of course, is sitting at the top of the governing body as he did, the double standards. Some brothers can't live a lie, but some do it, as you say, for decades.
And I mean, they're given high position in the organization, whereas as somebody is allowed to be baptized and be a witness, but you can't be given a position because you're living a lie.
Yeah, more about this double standard in local application in the next segment.